Man like Mark Sullivan, the warrior yourself. Stay tuned for the thrilling episode. Woo!
A positive mental attitude can clear away all obstacles which stand between you and your major purpose in life.
This is the Snowboard Project featuring Mark Sullivan and the Bead. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
So this is going to be episode 19B. 19B.
A.
B.
Why would we go to B?
Because we already have 19A, even though I didn't have the letter A on it, and we didn't announce it was A. That's 19A, and it's like in parentheses, and then 19B we actually say.
Look, in the industry, we'd always start with A. A for Apple, B for...
19A, B, whatever the graphic says, that's what episode it is, okay?
We are loose around here.
Yes, you know what? Rules are meant to be broken.
You're right, yeah.
Okay, so... Jeff Grell.
Jeff Grell. Who's Jeff Grell?
Oh, man. Jeff Grell. So, first of all, this guy's been snowboarding for 50 years. And it's like, okay, so that's a long time.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's actually done a lot more than just snowboarded for 50 years. So,
What did he do?
Oh, I'll tell you what he did. I'll tell.
Okay.
He invented the highback binding.
Get out of here.
Real talk. Yeah, I mean, there's another guy, Lofo, on the East Coast who was doing it, but really it's like the brand's adopted. Grell was in the mix. I think he worked at Aspen Highlands and then got the ear of Tom Sims and first Stevie Dara for Flite, and that's why he's part of Flite Week.
Oh, cool.
So Jeff Grell invented the highback binding, and he didn't even get a patent on it, right? Every brand adopted it almost immediately. Every brand used highback, the same highback that he designed, people still use to this day. If he had gotten I think he says this in the interview, but it's like if he had gotten like $1 royalty on every highback, which basically allowed ski resorts to, for you to go heel side on hardpack.
Right.
That was a highback binding. But if he got like $1 royalty off every highback sold, he'd be a billionaire.
You think $1 billion?
Yeah, well, think about it. There's like 20 million snowboarders. How many of them have more than one pair of bindings or have had more than one pair of bindings over the course of their career?
You said 20 million snowboarders?
Yeah, at least.
You know what the math would be on that? It would be like owning 50 boards.
Have you ever been to the Dig My Quiver group? There are
You're
people.
You're right. There are people.
Okay,
anyway,
roughly a billion.
Okay.
10 billion. I took $1 million and I made it into 10. Oh, never mind.
I didn't know if you knew that I was a mathematical genius like that. Like instantly, I was like, no way.
Wow, I thought you were just calling bullshit on me.
$1 on every single pair of bindings sold.
Anyhow, let's listen to this Jeff Grell interview. It's a real honor to have this guy who contributed so much to the sport of snowboarding. So let's give a listen to Jeff Grell.
Episode 19.
B. So today I have Jeff Grell on the Snowboard Project, and man, what an honor. Jeff Grell maybe contributed the biggest step forward in technology for snowboarding, the highback binding. Is that true, Jeff? You created the highback. You're the guy.
Yeah, my creation, I actually dubbed it the highback before anybody else started making similar stuff. So, yeah, I guess that makes me the first one. Okay,
so how did you conceive? How did you make the first highback? What did that first highback look like?
Actually, the first highback was I was riding at the Aspen Highlands in Colorado. This would have been in the early 80s. They actually allowed us to ride at the Highlands, which was remarkable because back then, everybody thinks the old days of snowboarding were great. The old days of snowboarding were a struggle because it was hard to find a place to let you get on the mountain.
Yeah.
Anyway, we finally got on the hill at the Highlands and realized if you've ever ridden the Aspen Highland, it's kind of like a big ridge right at the spine, dropping off to the left, dropping off to the right. And those hillsides were just killed me. So I went to the local thrift shop, bought a pair of old Lang Banshee boots, stripped off the sole, created a strap that hooked underneath the bottom of my foot. And back at that time, all the bindings on snowboards were just base plates. There was no high back. So the combination of the ski boot upper attached to my hiking shoe, which I was using at the time, with a strap under the foot and the base plate, basically came up with the initial concept for the high back binding. Basically, when you lean back and pull your foot up, so it allowed you to make a heel side turn.
Right. So that's like not only the first high back, but also the first Franken binding.
Yeah, probably. And then I introduced it to Stevie D at Flite, and then he helped me popularize it. And then eventually I met Dave Weaver, was working with Sims, and I actually made a bunch of these things and handed them out to some snowboard legends, so to speak, the likes of Chris Carroll and Terry Kidwell, Bob Klein, Steve Link. There were a bunch of other guys. Stevie D was trying to do something with me and at Flite.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, when I went to Sims, Dave Weaver, who was there, he had taken my idea and tried to morph it into the Sims base plate.
Right.
And they actually called me up and asked me to go test their new prototype, which was interesting because on my original design, the straps, there were two straps all across the front. When we went and tested their design, it didn't work anymore because when you attached that same design to the base plate, when you lean forward, the straps were cut into the top of your foot. So we were up at Mount Hood, I was testing it out, I called them up to cut the straps off, and then there we had the first convertible high back.
Wow, that's amazing. And why didn't you patent that invention? I mean, I think it's fair to say you'd be a rich man today. I don't know if you're rich or not, but like you'd be like wealthy based on that one invention because, that really is the creation that led to ski resort acceptance all across the country and world.
Well, I had hoped when I went to do this stuff with Sims, I had gotten hired to work for him. This was back in 1985. Mm-hmm. And the original idea had started probably in 82 and 83, thereabouts. And my understanding with Tom at the time was that we would develop this kind of work in partnership and develop, because he had the resource that I was just a broke snowboarder. I didn't have much of any money to speak of, and so finally I had a job at a snowboard company, which was cool. And we were working on the developing the binding. We actually developed the Sims Pro binding was the first production high back binding out there. And if you ever saw any of the original ones, they had those bell buckles, which were
I rode those.
You couldn't get ratchet straps back then. So, but the bell buckles were tough because they would pop off on you when you were, every once in a while. That was unfortunate. But anyway, I was there with Tom for a few years, and I hoped we were going to work things out, but it didn't really work out. And I never had any money for a patent. I actually did get a patent many years later for the asymmetric wing, which if you've seen some of the new bindings, have kind of like the hook on them.
Yeah.
I had a patent on that.
Okay.
And it encompassed the high back binding, but it didn't even matter. I mean, the snowboard industry was never going to pay. Even if I had a patent, look what Jake went through when he got the patent on the snowboard binding. Everybody laughed at him and didn't pay any attention to it.
Hey, what's up, guys? Beav here. I know you're probably kicking back in your room with your headphones on, or maybe you're in your car on the way to work, or maybe coming from work. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in and listening. It is people like you that make this worth it for guys like Mark and I to make these episodes for you. Please do us a favor. Will you please rate us, share us, tell your friends, spread the word. We want to be able to keep making this happen. And if you can also go to patreon.com/the Snowboard Project, you can check us out and you can help us keep creating creating these podcasts for you. We are an independent voice in snowboard media, meaning we don't have anybody, that we are beholden to. We don't have anybody that says, hey, maybe you shouldn't talk about that. And that is why this is special. So thank you for being a supporter of that. If you feel like supporting us, or if you don't, hey, either way, at least you're tuning in. So please share, please like, please rate, please let us know how we can be better. Patreon.com/The Snowboard Project.
Well, the original highback, the concept was solid. It fundamentally hasn't changed at all since the original design. I mean, the base plates are essentially the same. The highback is essentially the same. The manufacturing on the new bindings is a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly we didn't have that technology back in the 80s to do this type of thing. And now I look at the stuff now. I mean, Christ, you're getting $350, $400 for a pair of bindings now. It's like, yeah, it would have been nice if I'd had a dollar for every binding made. I'd probably have $1 billion because there's been enough of them made. But it doesn't matter. I mean, I've been involved in snowboarding. This is my 50th year snowboarding this year. I got my first board in 1960.
What year?
Yeah, 50 years. I started in 1968 with a snurfer that I bought at the local department store for $13. And I rode that thing. I rode that board up to the point that I met the guys at Flite Snowboards, Rhode Island, and we got Flite boards, and we stayed friends with Steve and Dave Darrow. I mean, those guys were so far ahead of their time.
Yeah.
When I first met them, they had the skateboard factory in Tiverton, Rhode Island, and they were, they did the Great White Wave, which was one of the first snowboarding videos, and Stevie D was just an amazing entrepreneurial spirit. And, I was fortunate. I met him, and I got to meet Chuck Barfoot and worked with him, and I got to work with Tom Sims.
Cool.
But afterwards, I went off on my own and did my own thing. And the highback was always there, but I don't know. Maybe I felt jilted after the whole Sims experience because I was hoping to have a part of that with him and his company.
Yeah.
And then it all kind of fell apart, and he sold off to Vision Sports. They they actually drove me down to Costa Mesa when I was working with them. The highback was going on. The boards were all good because Vision Sports was looking to buy them out. And I looked around Costa Mesa, and I think it was about 2 weeks later, I was in my car and heading out of town. I couldn't do it.
Really?
I was going to wasn't going to live in Southern. All the things that I've done in my life, I've wanted to be on the snow, and all the jobs that I've had in my life has done everything to keep me off the snow. So it's been a real battle like that.
Right.
But anyway,
it's not easy to be a snowboarder and work in the industry. That's what I found anyway.
Yeah. Well, I found that out pretty early on. Anyway, so my original highback design, I actually used for quite a long time, up until even after the convertible highback was designed, because I liked the way it worked with the base plate.
Mm-hmm.
I could adjust it to get us just the right amount of support, and it was my own thing, so it made me feel good about riding my own invention.
That's so amazing. I mean, every snowboarder in the world owes you a debt of gratitude the same way, they think of, like, they hold Jake up or Mike Olson up or any of these innovators. And it's like, I would say that your innovation, the highback, was the thing that actually changed the sport and really made it accessible and acceptable at ski resorts.
Right. Well, I was fortunate because the time, the timing is so important in all this, anything in development and design. And you could have a great idea today, and maybe you could get it to hit and be recognized for it, but chances are really slim because there's so much stuff out there, technology and internet and all the iPhones and information is instantaneous. Back then, I mean, we didn't have a cell phone, we didn't have any of that stuff. I was just lucky to be able to be in a lot of the right places and met a lot of the right people, and got the recognition. And for that, I'm grateful. The funny thing about it, the highback's probably one of the smaller things that I've done in my career in snowboarding.
Really?
As far as building and design, I did a lot of design work. I built a lot of boards. I built boards for Sims. I helped Chuck Barfoot build boards. I had a factory I helped set up in France called the Spris factory, and we did about 100 boards there, and then came back and had the Rocky Mountain factory and built boards there. Started the ski school at the Aspen Highlands, and then went out to start the program at Aspen Ski Company. Went out to Mammoth and did it out there. And then I got my job working with Body Glove doing the PSTA, running the Pro Snowboard Tour of America. And I did that for a number of years. And then that evolved into the American Pro Snowboard Series, which I did for a number of years. And somewhere in there, I did the Snowboarding a Visual Lesson, which was the first instructional video for snowboarding.
Cool. So you've been a snowboarder through and through for 50 years.
50 years, yep. I haven't, some years were thin on the number of days I got out on the hills because of the nature of things. But, I'm still healthy. I rode a lot last winter, and, believe it or not, the hardest thing for me is getting equipment, over the years. It's
Okay,
I was never good about, it's like if it came to me, great. If it didn't come to me, well, I just managed to get by. It always seemed, well, I never go out and build it for myself, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so, I would say it would probably be one of the greatest honors of my life, of any snowboarder's life, to take a run with you. Where do you ride today? Where would I go to find you, get in the lift line with you, ride the lift, and take a run with you?
Well, I ride at Heavenly in South Lake Tahoe because I have a place right down at the bottom of the mountain there. So I walk out my door and Gun Barrel, and it's right there. Heavenly's not the most extreme mountain, but it's a great hill because you can get a ton of vertical and just go fast.
Mm-hmm.
I get down to Mammoth. I was there over Christmas. I was in Jackson Hole for the powwow last winter, and so I get around. I'm still a technical delegate for the FIS, so that typically gets me up to Big White or up to someplace in Canada a few times a winter.
Cool.
But my typical place is to get to Heavenly. And this year I've got the Icon Pass and the Epic Pass, so I guess I can go to Squaw and, I always ridden Sierra Tahoe as well because those guys are great. But,
wow.
Tahoe's pretty cool because we've got a lot of resorts up there.
Well, I might just make the pilgrimage, and I believe it would be actually a pilgrimage to go ride with you because it's like it blows me away actually that I'm speaking to the inventor of the highback, and snowboarding is a sport that changed my life, and it was really, it can all trace its acceptance, the reason why it was able to grow as quickly and exponentially as it did, to some idea that you had when you were being a ski bum or a snowboard bum. So that's just incredible. So, well, thank you for that. Thank you on behalf of the sport of snowboarding, Jeff.
Well, hey, Mark, no problem. And you've done your fair share of contributions as well. I'm a pretty humble guy. I don't get hung up on my ego over stuff. It's like, I've done a lot of different things. I'm still doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But, my goal is to get to 2 million vertical feet this winter.
2 million vertical feet. How many runs is that approximately? Just ballparking it.
Be over 1,000.
1,000. Wow.
I don't know whatever figure top to bottom runs in Heavenly or Mammoth are about 3,000 vertical feet. So you can do the math on that. But I average from 20 to 30,000 vertical in a day, and my most in a day on lift service has been about 45,000.
Wow.
Do the Gun Barrel 25, which in Heavenly, which is about 45,000 vertical. When you do that, it's 25 laps up and down the Gun Barrel lift.
Wow,
it's grueling, especially since it's just bumps all the way down. I mean, big as Volkswagens, and so I'm pretty happy. My knees are still holding up. The hips are good. Body's in decent shape. A lot of my contemporaries, a lot of people that I've known over the years aren't so lucky. They've got knee issues or hip issues or back issues, and I feel for everybody. But one thing to keep in mind is, I'm 60 years old now, and I've changed my approach to snowboarding. It's like I'm not going big. I'm not going for big air. I'm going for longevity.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be doing this when I'm 80 and maybe 90 years old. I'll probably have dementia and won't even know how to talk by the time I'm 90. But at least if they put me on the snow, I'll probably know how to make a turn still. So I'll be happy about that.
Wow. So amazing.
Anyway.
So amazing. So anyhow, I also wanted to talk to you about Flite. So something I've been working on as part of this podcast is making basically like a tribute board for Stevie Dara and to you actually. Well, I mean it's not a highback, but it's basically a tribute Flite board so people don't forget that history. So the legacy of Stevie Dara lives on. So when did you first come in contact with Flite as a brand? How did you become acquainted with Flite snowboards?
Well, 1976, I met Stevie D. We went out to Rhode Island and met him at his factory because we had heard about his stuff, and we were fortunate enough to meet up with him and then get boards from him. And stayed in touch with him. Actually, in 1978, he set me and my older brother Derek up with a bunch of prototypes he had been working on, which I look back on some of those prototypes. They were really cool. He was really into the Gull V design, which later on kind of went away and became more like a traditional snowboard. But the original Gull V designs were built for soft snow. Originally, snowboarding was done in powder pretty much because they didn't let us on pack slopes. But the Gull V allowed the board to work without a high back binding. Basically, when you put pressure on the edge, the Gull V would allow the board to steer right or steer left, depending on how you're pressuring the board. So we had these boards in 78. We were riding these. I was riding them in Aspen. We would hike up Little Nell in the morning, do 10 or 12 runs on Little Nell, then go have breakfast, go shovel snow for the job, and then go ski the rest of the day. But Stevie D, he and I worked together for quite a long time, up till into the mid '80s, and I helped him. Well, he helped me, and I helped him with developing the high back. He recognized my idea first. He was the first one to actually put it in print. That the high back binding, with power and ease to make heel side turns, So he was a true innovator, and actually the boards that I'm building now, I started building a modern version of his design with Gull V.
I have one. It's amazing. So the Gull V, let's talk about the Gull V for a second before we get deeper into Flite. The Gull V is basically like the contoured base, like a bolt hull almost, with a downturned rail on the edges, correct? Is that a correct assumption to say that?
Yeah, that's right. If you were to look at the back of the board from in profile, it would look almost like a seagull's wing, dipping down, then dropping down in the middle, and then back up, and then dropping down again. Anyway, I always thought that was a brilliant design and for soft snow, and so I went and improved on his design and actually made. I've got like 25 different molds here. I've got one to make a 140 centimeter board, 150 centimeter board, 60 centimeter board, 180 centimeter board.
Okay, so
the wires went big.
If someone wants a Grell, and they're like kind of powder surfing boards, no bindings, right?
That's right.
And so how would someone get one of your boards that you actually made? Like, how would someone actually acquire a Grell board?
Well, I used to have them at Wave Rave in Mammoth. Steve Klassen may still have some up there. I built about 200 boards, and then I got them. I've never been a very good sales guy. I built a lot of boards, and I gave a lot of them away.
Yeah,
because it just felt like I loved the idea of it, and sometimes I would sell them here and there. But they could contact me. See the best way to do that.
Maybe an email or a website?
Yeah, I don't have a website going right now. Okay. Too much, websites are like children. They take too much maintenance.
Okay.
Somebody could email me, Jeff Grell at sbcglobal.net.
Okay.
and I'd probably get back to him. I built a lot of boards up to about 3 years ago, and then my wife got cancer. She died, and I kind of lost my, how should I say, kind of lost my drive.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm actually building yeah, me too. But that's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I built a scale model, which is about 12 inches long. Those are a lot easier to build because it takes about 1/50th of the amount of material than a board. All the boards I was building, I got into vacuum forming, and actually started building boards with ETEX bases. They're out there. There's some out there. I think most of the people that have them are pretty possessive about their boards and not going to give them up. I've got the means to make more equipment, more boards. I need something to give me the incentive. It's like I built a lot of boards over the years, and it's like it's sort of like the tide. It comes and it goes.
Okay. I'll tell you what. Someone can have my Grell board when they pry it from my cold dead fingers.
Hey, what's up, Roger?
Nothing much.
Roger Sullivan. Mark Sullivan, 30 years earlier. Right?
Yeah.
What's going on? You loving snowboarding?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah? What's the best thing about snowboarding?
Just like, it's a good experience, and it's really good to do with friends and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's why we all got into snowboarding, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the feeling you get when you're getting up in the morning and you're going to go snowboarding?
I get really excited. Sometimes I'm not too excited, though, because sometimes a little tired, but
Yeah.
it's always really fun in the end.
Does Mark pull you out of bed and go like, Roger, it's time to go snowboarding?
Yeah.
He does, huh? Because he's all stoked on snowboarding.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, how much does Mark love snowboarding?
He loves it, like, a lot.
Like a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What's it like being his son? Is it hard? Do you have to compete with the snowboard sometimes?
Yeah, it can be kind of hard to keep up because he is pretty dang fast, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. So you guys race sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So have you donated to our Patreon?
No.
Why the heck not, Raj? Don't you have a job?
I guess I do have a job.
Yeah. What's your job?
I'm the mail guy for the snowboard project.
Wait, you're our mail guy?
Yeah.
Oh, well, at least you didn't get intern position because you'd be making me coffee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that job sucks. Anyway, so you haven't chipped down a couple bucks?
Not yet, but I'm gonna.
Where do you
get
go?
some.
Where do we go to do that?
We go to patreon.com/the snowboard project.
Yeah. Thank you, Roger. If you didn't get that, patreon.com/the snowboard project. This is the voice of Mark Sullivan 30 years ago. Yeah, that's what he'd sound like.
I have one.
That would be the thing that would really give me the most gratification, is to go hike someplace where there's a good pitch and make some good turns. Without a bunch of bindings. I think it was sort of my get back at the highback. Let's build a board that doesn't need damn things in the first place. And that was what I got back to. It was like, we did the highback binding. Why do you need a board that doesn't need it? Because I want a board that doesn't need highbacks. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the highback binding. I love the new technology. Some of the companies got it right, and a bunch of them have still got it completely wrong. They don't understand the fundamental mechanics of how it's supposed to work. Another guy who deserves a lot of credit is the Canadian snowboarder Louis Lafournier. He and I were brothers from another mother.
Mm-hmm.
He and I had the same ideas at the same time. He came up with his design. I came up with my design at totally opposite ends of the earth, basically. But I got more credit because I dubbed my design the highback. He that may have been the biggest coup of the whole design was naming it, because the name stuck. So
Right.
it became known as highback binding as opposed to being the spoiler or the wing or the whatever.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, it's like, yeah, there was a lot to a name.
Yeah.
But,
Interesting.
so anyway, Stevie, getting back to Stevie D, he went through a bunch of evolutions and kind of got caught in the same trap that a lot of early snowboard manufacturers were. He had good ideas, but he didn't have Jake's wife to back him up and fund his company.
Yeah.
Tom had the same problem. He didn't really have the resources either. That's why he went off the mission. So Stevie D kind of did everything he could to the point that he just couldn't do it anymore. Tom did everything he could to the point that he couldn't do it anymore. Chuck Garford did everything he could to the point that he couldn't do it anymore. Mike Olson with Mervyn did well, and is still doing good, but now he's making everything from boards to skis.
Yeah.
Jake, king of the hill. I mean, and that poor guy has been through hell. I mean, he had some health issues, which are right about just, thank God he made it through that. But
Yeah.
it was a great product. His boards are beautiful. His bindings are great. Very impressive. And then I look at, some of the likes of some of the other guys that, Jeremy Jones, he was a competitor on the PSTA, which was on the Cross M team, went on to do all kinds of crazy expedition snowboarding, and he's got a beautiful line of boards, and, it's fun for me to see some of these guys, and, timing was really good for me within snowboarding. I get to know a lot of really cool people, a lot of legends, people that are gone now, some people that are, become really well known. It's been a good run. And to know Stevie D, I haven't seen the guy in so many years, and God, he was just such a great attitude, and he was really inventive.
Yeah.
He's an unsung hero of the sport. He deserves a lot more credit. He's one of the first ones to come up and have metal edges on binding on snowboards.
Yep.
He was the first guy to integrate the highback. He had one of the first guys to put the UHMW base on his boards. A lot of stuff like that. So it's pretty remarkable what he was able to accomplish for a guy in Rhode Island where they don't even have a damn hill.
I know. It's amazing that, it's almost like certain people want to rewrite the history of snowboarding, and to me it's like you can't tell the history of snowboarding without mentioning Stevie D. As you mentioned, the metal edges, the high back binding, in conjunction with you, of course, but also like the P-Tex base or the plastic base, and also he was doing basically the base contour of a board that essentially allowed powder surfing to become a niche or like a subcategory of snowboarding. And really it's like he was doing that in the 1970s, not the 2010s.
Well, I remember in '78 he sent me a board. It was the Flite Rocket, which had the Gull V with a skateboard deck mounted on the top, just like one of these snow skates you're seeing all over the place back in the late '70s. Now those things are all over the place, and their technology's better, the designs are better, the skis are better. The boards are good, and the guys are ripping on them. And but I wish I still had that original design, because nobody, we ended up taking the deck off because it's like, what do you need this skateboard deck on top of a board for? And that was the train of thought back then. It's like the board was in the '70s, having a new board of any kind was pretty cool, because there wasn't. I was at Wave Rave last week, and Steve Klass and I were working on a new project, and he was getting me set up with some boards. And he's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boards that are just 5 years old, 10 years old, whatever. That they're all dated now. It's like back then, and you couldn't even get a board in the '70s.
Yeah.
Now there's boards. Now there's boards everywhere. There are so many boards, and people are making chairs out of them, benches. They don't know what to do with all these old boards anymore. But hey, that's evolution. And But, who would have known that the electric bicycle, the e-bikes, would become such a big thing so fast?
Yeah, really.
And, it's like, I don't know if you've been on one lately, but pretty cool stuff.
Yep.
Anyway,
so tell me a story about Stevie D that kind of encompasses his character as an innovator or whatever. Just tell me a story about meeting him, just so I can kind of paint a picture in my head, or these other listeners can paint a picture in their heads of what Stevie D was like as a person. Because definitely, I think we've established he was an innovator. So what was it like meeting Stevie D, hanging out with Stevie D?
Stevie D was the first time I met him. We went out to Rhode Island to this factory. It was in Tiverton, Rhode Island. That was with a T, Tiverton.
Mm-hmm.
He had this old building, and outside the building, he had a big old half-pipe skate ramp, which I'd never seen one before. And he had a whole line. Like skateboards was a big deal. It was sort of like sim skateboards back in the 70s. Skateboarding was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And walked into a shop, and he had a half a dozen guys working for him. He's building all these cool skateboards, and then he had his snowboards that he was developing. Anyway, he takes a break from working, and he drops into the half pipe on his skateboard, and I'm just blown away. In the 70s, you're not seeing a lot of this half pipe stuff going on. The guy was ripping. My first impression was, this guy has got something going on, because I tried skating. Would be skating around a parking lot or down the road, or eating shit when you get going too fast and the speed wobbles caught up with you.
Yeah.
And, but Stevie he had the airborne skate, which was a skateboard design, which had notch outs on the bottom, so that when you're doing like some of the airs he was doing at the time, you had a way to grab onto the board and get a good grip on it. So he was leading edge with skateboarding. Then his routine was he'd go up to Waterville Valley or one of those places up in New Hampshire and ride. And so we actually didn't. Where we actually got to ride together was at the first U.S. Open in Vermont when it was in Snow Valley. And I remember Stevie was there, and we were all riding his boards, and the Burton guys were there, and Tom was there. That was like a who's who in a way. In the early days, that was the very first U.S. Open. They didn't even call it the U.S. Open, but I remember Jake was really upset because my brother and I came up with our own T-shirt design and showed up at the event with our own T-shirts for the event. We were so excited about it. But Stevie didn't. Tom won that event. I think he actually won sliding across the finish line because he fell right before he got there. And I actually had a photograph of Tom sliding across the finish line, but he still had the fastest time. And I know that there was Andy Cogdon was there, and Chris Carroll, and Jake, and Mark Harding-Gardner, and that whole entourage of really Burton team guys were competing. And we came up from Connecticut, me and a bunch of buddies, and I think there were like 8 of us staying in a motel room. Something's never changed.
Right.
But, it was a cool event. Got to meet a lot of people. Got to ride with Stevie D. He was just him and his brother. They were generally really cool people, and he went on to develop I think it was kind of like a surf jet, like a surfboard for almost like a jet ski, but with a surfboard. He did a bunch of stuff. Oh, and then there was the pretty much. I understand there was this little what do they call that thing? It was this little guy stood on a surfboard. It was just a miniature remote controlled surfboard with this little mannequin type thing on the top. I believe he developed that. If you go online and do a patent search for Stevie D, he's got a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Cool.
And so he wasn't just a designer, but he was an inventor, and he was he understood the patent process. So, and he was a hell of an athlete. I'll never forget watching him skate.
Cool.
A big impression.
So, where is Stevie D today? When was the last time you talked to him?
It's been many, many years since I talked to him, but I believe he's still in somewhere around Newport, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And but he just sort of dropped out off the radar, and as happens with people in sports sometimes, they burn bright and then the flame goes out. And I've been fortunate enough that I haven't lost my interest in the sport. You know, I still love it. I do it, do it as much as I can. Winter's coming, and I'm hoping for, I hope to get a couple million vertical feet this winter.
Cool. Well, you know what? I'm gonna make sure that you get one of these Stevie D tribute boards, because it would be an honor to have you have like a tribute to Stevie D and Flite snowboards. You know, and I've been working on this with the Dig My Quiver group on Facebook, and and so it's just something to just make sure that his legacy does not get forgotten. You know, and I think I think it's important that people understand. It's like you don't know where you're going unless you know where you come from. And certainly, a lot of snowboarders have a debt of gratitude to pay to Steve Dara. And you, by the way, you too.
No worries on that. I have some old photos of Stevie D from back in the day too. If at some point, send me your email address, and I'll get you some copies there. Then we can have a couple old photos of Stevie D.
Oh, I'd love that.
There's this big old van with his board. And, you know, he was impressed by what Dimitri did with the winter stick as well. That was I think that influenced his thought process. But Dimitri was also one of the pioneers that deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, it seems like back in the early day, everyone had like this mutual respect. Like respect was key, and then it became this thing at a certain point, anyway, where it became like competitive, where it was like, oh no, you can't come into my shop. Whereas I would imagine in like 1982, if you were making snowboarders and Chuck Barfoot walked into your shop, you'd be like, okay, here's exactly how I do it. What do you do? You know?
Yeah, well, I was working for Sims, and we were doing a lot of innovative stuff there, and I met Chuck, so I would moonlight for Chuck, helping him put edges on his boards because he didn't know how to have the technology. And we developed the technology. See, early on with Sims, the boards came as blanks, and Tom would come up with a design for the board. He'd send it off to Tony Magnuson at Uncle Wiggly's at the time.
Yep.
There was skateboard presses down there, and then they would press out his boards with his logos and stuff. They would send the blanks to him, to Tom, then we would actually do all the finish work. And
the finish work was like putting on metal edges, not like grinding it on a base grinder. It was like, no, you have to attach the edges, right?
No, we had to develop this special router bit because his boards, the fiberglass epoxy, the P-Tex when they were laid out, the P-Tex went down, a layer of fiberglass went down, all the horizontal laminates went down, pressed the board, got cut out in the factory, came to us shaped with no edges in it.
Mm-hmm.
So to get the edges in was a big challenge because we had to develop a special router bit that would cut out the slot in the board without burning itself up on the fiberglass, because the fiberglass, if it would hit metal, would get really hot, and then these bits were really delicate. And but that was what, 85, 86, 87, that technology came and went. And then people started realizing, hey, if we build boards with edges in them already, we don't put them in afterwards. But so if you look at any of those early boards that had edges that were done that way, they were all hand fitted and glued, and I'm surprised how well a lot of those things held up over the years. Pretty impressive. And then before I got there, he had somebody who was actually using a P-Tex welder. They would take the edges out, they would route out the edge of the board, put the edge in, screw it in, then come back and weld the edge. So if you ever see one of the early Sims 1500 FEs with a black, looks like a P-Tex weld along the edge, that was what was going on. There were only a few of those, and we did, when I was working for him in 85 through 86, we had a bunch of boards that, in trying to develop the technology, that would the bit would blow up. So we would route out that whole edge, put the edge in, and then come back in with a strip of P-Tex to fill in that gap again, and then scrape them all down. And the P-Tex was soft enough back there that if you had a sharp enough of a blade, you could shave off a bunch of the P-Tex to get the edge and the base to match, because I was always challenged because the thickness of the edge was typically less than the thickness of the P-Tex. So there were a lot of little technical challenges that we ran into back in the day.
What's going on over there, Beeve?
I'm just angry.
Why are you so angry?
I'm just an angry snowboarder.
Oh, come on, Beeve. You're not that angry. Maybe we should have called up Kinger and have him cheer you up. Or better yet, we should just look at our Patreon page and see if anyone is supporting us this month.
Yeah, no, let's get stoked on snowboarding,
Yeah,
right?
I'm actually stoked all the
Let's
time.
get stoked all the time.
On snowboarding.
Yeah.
And you know how we're going to do that?
By not being angry.
No, we're going to do it by telling the real stories of snowboarding and not having advertisers influencing us. And so normally, like in magazines and like social media, there's advertisers, people like Burton or LibTech or whatever, but like part of the message then that you're conveying is their message, and you're kind of like carrying the water for these brands. And so we don't have to carry the water for anyone. I'll carry your water, I guess, Beef.
You already did earlier today.
Yeah, well, you're welcome.
Yeah, no problem.
So go to patreon.com/the snowboard project. We have different levels. They're outlined there on our Patreon page. Please support this independent voice in snowboarding media.
Okay, so you were there basically for like the entire modernization of like snowboarding, basically from the time it was a snurfer all the way through to the point where, I don't know, they was a standardized shape. Most boards look the same. To you, what were like the three greatest things? And you could say highback because that would be top of my list probably, but like what are like the three things that really kind of made a difference and helped the sport like take like leaps forward as far as the technology and the ability to ride?
Well, the P-Tex base was key because the boards, you weren't just waxing a wooden base anymore. Inserts into the board so you could actually mount the bindings and adjust the bindings on the board. That was a big step.
Who did that first?
Base.
Who did inserts first?
So we were doing it Sims in '85. Tom was doing it before that, but so Stevie D, I think he picked up on it a little bit later. I don't know who the first one to do inserts was. Even that was a process itself, because if you didn't get you needed what was called a Forstner bit to drill the hole into the board, and you needed a special tool to drive the bit in. Then you needed to glue the bit and the insert into. So this was a whole process. If you got it wrong, you put a dent in the bottom of the board and fuck up the board. And so there was a lot of trial and error went on in the day. So none of it just happened. It sort of happened over time. We learned by the mistakes that we made and got better. And who did the first inserts? It could have been Steve. It could have been Tom. It could have been Jake. It could have been Chuck. Chuck and Tom worked together early, and then they split apart. And, it could have been Dimitri his boards had different stuff. He didn't have inserts because his boards had foam cores.
Right.
Who would have been the first guy to do the inserts? But P-Tex base inserts, the base plates, the highback, of course. And then beyond that, the metal edge was a big thing. Because early boards didn't have a metal edge. And then probably the biggest thing was acceptance at the resorts.
Right.
Used to be that everyone thinks the glory days of snowboarding went back to the 70s and 80s. It's like, no, it was a pain in the ass because nobody would let us ride. You go to a place and they say no. We had a list of resorts that would allow us, and it was one of the attitudes was like, be cool, don't fuck it up for the next guy because, hiking, it gets you in shape, but lift service.
Yeah.
Don't take it for granted. Anybody that takes lift service riding for granted is a fool.
Yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, just based on what you've told me, that like the people that I should have as like my trinity or maybe quadrinity of, I don't know what it would be, but like the trinity of innovators would be Jake for ski area acceptance, maybe Tom for inserts or for, just innovating in general. That's like pushing it back in the day on the West Coast. And then Stevie D, as far as like PTEX bases, metal edges, and then of course yourself for the high back binding. I mean, those are the guys, to me, are the guys who really made the biggest differences in the sport of snowboarding.
Right. And Jake was developing the first event at Snow Valley, which was opened up into the U.S. Open of snowboarding. It only lasted 1 year at that little resort, and that resort is defunct at this point. It's just a bunch of old shrubby trails at this point. So, yeah, Jake did a lot for resort acceptance. And Tom, when I went to work for him, and he helped me evolve my design with the high back into what he called the Sims Pro binding, which was the first truly convertible high back binding, his first production binding. That was cool. And then Stevie D was kind of right there at the leading edge of all that stuff. It's just a lot of it had to do with finance and resources.
Yeah.
The guy that had the resources and the money and won. And I'd say that Jake had the finances and the resources. And if you compare his company to Sims, to Flite, to Barfoot, it was like the last man standing.
Right. Well, what an incredible story. I'm actually just like so humbled having you tell these stories firsthand to me, because it's like I feel that connection to those early days of snowboarding is that much richer just having you tell me these stories firsthand. And so, I really appreciate that, Jeff, you taking the time to share these stories with the world. And I'm making a pilgrimage here one of these days to go ride with you at Heavenly. I'd just like to do one run with you, or maybe I'll do it like old school style. Like when I was 14, I'd just like see another snowboarder on the mountain, and then I'd just like chase him down until I could catch up to him. I try to talk him into going up the lift with me or whatever. I mean, basically you're automatic friends in the lift line if you're a rider too. It's amazing how much it's changed.
It has changed. Used to be you didn't run into many people on the road. It's mainstream, and people were moving on to other sports, and snowboarding is almost taking the back seat to, snowboarding really did a lot for the ski industry. People need to realize that skiing was kind of a flat, old school ideas, old equipment. Now you look at this new skis. I mean, some of the new skis might as well they look like snowboards.
Yeah.
And I love skiing still. It's like people say, when I took up snowboarding, I gave up skiing. It's like, well, either you weren't a good skier, and then that's why you gave it up, or you're stupid, because both sports are fun. I mean, getting out in the snow is fun. Doesn't matter what you're on. I don't care. If somebody says, you're a snowboarder, but you ski too, I'm like, yeah, I ski and I snowboard, and I have snowshoes, and winter sports. Doesn't matter. Just go out there and do it. Have fun.
Cool. Well, thank you, Mr. Jeff Grell. It has been such a great honor, I have to say. So thank you for your time.
All right, Mark. Well, hey, maybe when you still doing the Tailgate Alaska thing?
You know what? I have another guy running it. I'm still involved with it a little bit, but basically, like on the day-to-day operations, I'm not involved. But I'll tell you what, if you ever want to come to Alaska, I have a cabin up there now, a little house. And it's just, to me, it's like I like riding powder. And so I built a cabin. It's you can go to powexplorer.com and check it out.
Nice.
But to me, it's like that's kind of my fulfillment of my of my 30 plus years involvement. You've been at it for 50 though, man. That's crazy to me. It's just like, wow, you really are one of the it's like you were one of like the first guys, and you're still doing it and still passionate about it. And to me, that gives me hope and hope for my future. That when I'm 60, when I'm 70, when I'm 90, maybe I'll still be able to ride.
There you go. Well, there's a couple of online things that people can access. There's the snurping page on Facebook. I've got that going on. I don't update it very often, but occasionally I put something. And then I have a blog called Snurfari at blogspot.com. There's a bunch of stuff there, so people can go there and get a few laughs here and there.
Cool.
So it's worth a venture. Hey, Mark, well, hey, keep up the good work. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Talk, and
yeah,
go ahead and some slurry in the parking lot here right now.
Right on. Well, I'll send you an email, let you know when this is going to come out. It's going to be in about 2 weeks, I think. But I'd love for you to check it out. Love for you to get your feedback, and then I'll make sure you get one of those tribute Flite boards as well.
There you go. Well, hey, thanks again. Be safe, and I look forward to doing some charges this winter.
Cool. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
On behalf of Mark Sullivan and the Beeve, thanks for listening to the Snowboard Project. Remember, ride fast, take chances, dream big, and take action. And for God's sake, don't be a... Don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.